come again in faith, grateful for your grace.
You good? Good morning. Can y'all hear me okay? I don't know what to do with my hands. Are we playing a game here? What are we doing? Head, shoulder. We can play that game. All right, put your first hand. How does it go? Simon Says, yeah, you put your hand on it. The kids like that game. All right, good morning. I hope you had a great snowpocalypse. Everybody make a snowman, survive the snow. You did make an ice man? Well, you know, I don't love the snow, but I kind of was hoping, since they talked about it so much, I looked out the window like every hour. It's like, nothing, man, come on. But, you know, they sold a lot of toilet paper and milk and bread, so there's that. I saw somebody put a Facebook sign, has anybody got any toilet paper because there's none left in Elgin? So apparently, those are the necessities: milk, bread, and toilet paper. Milk sandwiches. All right, so aside from that, what else is in your news? Like when you see the news throughout the week, what's the fires? Perfect. Not the drones. I can't talk about the drones. All right, let's go back to the fire. I like the fire one. So I saw these corny signs like, you know, a big fiery lion, and it's like God is fixing California. Or I see one that's like half the country's ice and the other half is on fire. It is wintertime. It is January. I mean, it is kind of typical for the season. It's not unusual to have some winter weather. I don't know. I think sometimes we want so bad to see something that's not there. But anybody know Stephen Baldwin? Did y'all see any of his stuff? Yeah. Did you see it? What did you think about that?
About what he said?
Yeah.
Him and Mel Gibson was talking about it. I seen that.
Well, you know, he's been talking about it a lot. He had this one little TikTok. I saw it because it went viral. And he's got this weird filter on, and he says, run. And he's talking about the people in California, and he's saying, you know, and I think the caption was something like, you know, it's God's judgment. And then he smirks and laughs. Regardless of how you feel about people, when I see the picture of Jesus standing over all of Jerusalem, knowing all the things that are getting ready to happen that they brought on themselves, he doesn't smirk, he doesn't laugh, he doesn't take time to film himself, he weeps. He weeps over their misfortune. What spirit is it? If you look at another person, knowing they're suffering, knowing their child is burned in a house fire, they've lost everything they have, and you laugh and say it's the judgment of God. Maybe it's your judgment. Maybe you need to find out which God you're serving right now. Because Jesus would have identified that as another spirit. That is called demonic. Do we normally have wildfires? Is this a new occurrence? I mean, in my opinion, God is a projection of most people's personality. And it speaks to where his heart is about the situation, about his heart of who those people are. By the way, that's where he lives. His daughter is married to Justin Bieber. I do believe they have a house there. You're a part of the same crowd. I got an idea. If you live there, instead of mocking them, being proud that your God has now destroyed them, which I don't believe has happened, maybe you walk over and give a helping hand. If you're so concerned about their lifestyle, maybe you try to be a light in their darkness. Maybe you try to be something of change. I don't know what Bible people are reading, but it's certainly not the same one I preach from every week. It can't be. There's a huge conflict. I'm very sympathetic. 2 years ago, my cousin's house caught on fire. And my grandfather's passed, and his wife had remarried, and something happened in the kitchen while they were asleep. And I forget exactly what happened, but the dogs woke them up. And so the house is full of fire. He runs out, takes her with him. She says, my son's inside. So she crawls back in on her hands and knees and tries to lead him out and loses his hand, crawls out the window, tries to get back in. The fire department stops her, and he burns alive. And the dogs and everything they own. Was it judgment of God? Come on. But I watch all the posts of people talk about the things they've lost. And I wonder sometimes, and I'm preaching to myself. I don't know how I would feel in this situation. I have a lot of things that I really enjoy, and I don't know how I'd feel about everything being gone. I know it had to be crushing, but I wonder if there's a part of me that would also be grateful for the people, because most of them were able to evacuate and get out. And most of them have second homes and things like that. So I wonder, rather than look at it as a judgment, and maybe as an opportunity to be grateful. What do I still have? Because all the other stuff I can get again, right? And so it kind of, this story in Squid Games brought me to this sermon, okay? So me and Kelly were watching Squid Games the other day. And so the guy goes up to people in the park. He buys 100 lottery tickets and 100 pieces of bread. You saw it, right? And so he goes up to them and he says, lottery ticket, bread. These are homeless people on the park bench. They have nothing, right? 100. He's bought 100 of them. So he goes to 100 people. How many do you think picked the bread? Not very many. One person. So you're here starving on a park bench, but you pick a piece of paper with the potential of money over the certainty of a meal, and you have nothing. Does that speak a lot? I know it's a show, but I dare say I think it's probably pretty accurate. And you scratch off, there's nothing there. I've gotten many scratch offs, not many. I've gotten quite a few, but they're always such a disappointment. And I scratch them, and I'm like, man, I just worked for that. You know what I mean? I ain't never won a dime. I tell you, the only thing I ever won was a giant raccoon. I don't even know how I won it. Walmart called me. It was Pocahontas cartoon, and I must have filled out one of those things at the door to win prizes. And they said, hey, you won something. I go down there, and it was a 6-foot raccoon, stuffed. So I think I gave it to some kids. That's the only thing I can remember winning. You were not even thought about, buddy. I was a teenager. Okay, so anyway, I got to think about all this materialism, right, all this stuff. And so I don't want this to come off as a sermon where I'm bashing what we have or our desires even have anything. We're a Grace Church, and I think that everything needs to be done in balance, right? We don't eat too much sugar. We don't drink too much liquor, okay? They're all in the same category. I know that sounds strange, but moderation and balance is a part of life. There's everything that you do is going to be that way. You can overindulge in anything and cause harm to yourself and to others, right? So I don't want this sermon to come off that way. I want it to come off as a way that, if it was important to Jesus and he spoke to this issue, then maybe it needs to speak to me sometimes, especially as we're coming off of a holiday season. 1 Timothy 6 says, command those who are rich in the present world not to be arrogant nor to be put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. I like that last part, for our enjoyment. Right? So sometimes we get so caught up in what we want or what we think we need or our desires that we forget that those aren't the things that are going to bring us any kind of purpose or enjoyment. And I don't think this is meaning to say that we're supposed to be some kind of, go Tibetan monk and live on a concrete surface. I don't think that's what he's trying to say here. But I think what he's trying to say is when you start to be arrogant about wealth, it changes who you are. Proverbs 11 says, whoever trusts in his riches will fall, but the righteous will flourish like a green leaf. Matthew 12. What will it profit a man if he gains the whole world, yet forfeits his soul? Or what shall a man give in return for his soul? You know, sometimes that's what it feels like, right? That's exactly what it feels like. I've worked and worked and worked and worked to attain things, but I feel like I've given my very soul away. I've given the essence of myself, the parts of me that are important, the parts of me that I gave up I never get back because I spent so much time trying to attain something that was never actually worth it. Has anybody ever bought something like that you really, really, really wanted to get it and then get that flat feeling after, that letdown? It was never, it didn't give that effect that you wanted it to have. Anybody? Yeah. I mean, I think that's true for a lot of us. Why do you think that is? Why do you think you get that letdown after you bought something that you really want? Why doesn't it give you what you thought you would get out of it?
Because nothing is as it appears.
Well,
You think it's one way and it's another.
well, I mean, that's actually perfect because we've been told, right? We got these TVs, right? You got your phones, you got all this information inundated in you that tells you what you need. The worst for me was a truck. Man, that truck would haunt me forever. I thought I had to have that truck, and it was no peace when that payment came. It didn't smell good no more, and I didn't like putting gas in it, and I wanted to drive it off a cliff. Then I went in jail. But anyway, we all get this sometimes. We get this entitlement. Well, I deserve it. I've worked really hard. I really want it. Or we really work to attain it. And we get it. We get this big letdown, and then we get the repercussions of what it is. And I think that's what these verses are trying to tell you. Jesus is stepping into our circumstances and saying those things are they're not really bad things, but they're going to cost you something more than the dollars you gave for it. It says no one can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will be loyal to the one and despise the other. I think that's an internal conflict. You know, you're as a man, you know, your 20s are your earning years, right? You maybe just gotten out of college, or you're still trying to find your career path. And you're really working a lot more. I can remember being that way. I can remember calling Stacy on the phone. I had a little chair by the work phone, you know, back you had to use, you know, the cords. You know, we didn't have our own little phone. And I'd sit there by the wall, and I'd be, hey, what you doing? Oh, we're at the lake, you know, birthday party on a Saturday afternoon. And I'm, you know, running my machinery at the plant. But I had to make that money. And so I look back over my life, and I think to myself, I spent way too much time trying to make that money, and I wasn't there. Even my little brother, sometimes he'll tell me stories, and I'll be like, what? That didn't happen. He was like, oh, yeah, you weren't there. You know, that's kind of crushing because there's no second chance. There's no going back. Once you've squandered it, and I hate to say it that way, but sometimes that's the way it feels. It feels like you gave your whole soul because you traded something that was so valuable, that was so important that you cannot attain by working ever again. Take heed, beware of covetousness, for a man's life does not consist of the things he has. So this is where, you know, not only the ads and all these things that we think we need to have, but sometimes we just spend way too much time looking over the fence. And you keep looking, and you keep looking until you want what they have. Coveted. So the word, right, to be coveting something is not necessarily the bad part. It's where it's going to lead you. Right? And sometimes it's in a worse place, like maybe you're coveting that person's spouse, right? Maybe it's on another level. But no matter which one it is, it's going to take you to a place where you didn't want to be, right? That was a desire that got you there. 1 Timothy 6:9, for those who love money will never have enough. How meaningless to think that wealth brings true happiness. Hebrews 13:5, don't love money, be satisfied with what you have, for God has said, I will never fail you. I will never abandon you. Sometimes we find money as a security blanket, right? We keep attaining, and the Bible says, I won't abandon you. God says, I won't abandon you. I won't abandon you. There's a season and time for everything. I'm not saying you can't, the Bible also says if you don't work, you don't eat. I get that. But I had to stop short of about 100 verses about warning against money. So there's obviously something there that the Bible is yelling to us, right? Command those who are rich in the present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is uncertain, but to put their hope in God. For riches provide us with everything for our enjoyment. Proverbs 11, whoever trusts in his riches will fall, but the righteous will flourish like a green leaf. I did that one already. Matthew 16, for what did it profit a man to gain his whole world but lose his soul? I don't know why I put those in there twice. But anyway, maybe they really need to be said. So when I look back over Scripture and I see an abundance of verses that have to do with the same thing, that means there's decades and centuries and thousands of years of people who are falling into the same traps, where they were trying to attain wealth, only to find that where it got them was not where they wanted to be. Right? You can look at the story of the rich young ruler, right? Or the prodigal son, right? All these stories, and most of the time it's not even about, like if you look at the prodigal son, it's not even about the wealth. He glosses over that. He glosses over the things he has and the things he squandered, but and we go straight to the pig pen moment, straight to the moment where it was nice. Maybe I had a good couple of stories to tell, but all I want to do is go back home. All right, so I want to land on this. This is in Luke chapter 12. This is Jesus, right? So Jesus he's speaking to a crowd. It says, just then, when someone spoke from a crowd and said, Master, you should compel my older brother to divide the family inheritance and give me my share. Can y'all see this? Right, so Jesus is up here giving these incredible nuggets of truth, right? Just pouring into people's lives on a crowd, into a crowd. And a man basically said, hey, can you tell my brother to divide the wealth and share? You think he listened to anything Jesus was saying prior to that? Sometimes I think we missed it. Sometimes I think we're so focused on whatever is going on up here that we miss what God has right in front of us. Sometimes he's already trying to speak into our lives. We're so busy creating our own version of it and our own versions of people, right? And we don't even see the beauty in what's going on around us. And so this man is hearing Jesus talk, and all he can think about is the fact that he don't have the money that he thinks he deserves. Jesus answered, my friend, who made me a judge or an arbitrator over you? Maybe in a way he was saying, I think you already know how to fix this problem. Why don't you go talk to your brother? Instead of going and finding me or somebody else to guilt them up into giving something away that doesn't belong to you. Be alert and on guard. Your heart from greed and always wishing for what you don't have. You ever seen that movie, The Walter Mitty? Secret Life of Walter Mitty? You never seen that? Y'all gotta watch that movie. It's a Ben Stiller movie. And in the beginning of the movie, he works in like the Life magazine. He's the person that does the film. So somebody will go out all over the world, take pictures of beautiful spotted leopards, and he's living the life, climbing Mount Everest, taking the pictures, and he sits in the basement and develops them and puts them in a magazine. So his whole life is pretty much secluded. So when the movie starts, he's got this huge fantasy life. He just gets stuck, and people are always like, where are you? Like he's just always stuck in like some kind of other world, some kind of imagination, dreaming he was where this other guy was. And then something happens, and he ends up having to go find the guy. So he goes on the same journeys and try to find the guy. And he ends up climbing Mount Everest and finding all this stuff. And by the end of the movie, he's talking to, through the whole movie, he's talking to eHarmony. Because eHarmony, he doesn't get any likes because he wants a date. So the eHarmony guy's calling him. He's like, you need to beef up your profile. You don't have nothing to add. So every time he calls him, he's like, hold on, man, I'm running from a volcano. He's doing all this crazy stuff. He's like, wait, what are you doing? And so by the end of it, he's like, basically asked him, he says, you still find yourself daydreaming? He said, no. Right? His whole life had changed because he started living it. He started looking through the lens of somebody else's life and started looking through the lens of his own. He started living what and so as Jesus is speaking, like all I can think is, you got a life in front of you. You already have, I'm quite sure you're living in the same house. This is a family member talking. You have everything you need, but you found yourself so caught up in another life that you think you can get because if you could just got a hold of that money. And we find ourselves daydreaming and worrying and wishing and looking at the neighbor's house and wanting so many things that we forget the people that are right in front of us and the blessings we actually have. So how would you feel today if it all went up in smoke? If the wildfires ran straight through Lugoff, South Carolina? What would you grab first? There's a fire coming today. What would you grab first? You grab your husband, you grab Milo. Sorry, Andy, you're stuck, buddy. She didn't even wake you up. See? She said, I'll grab the dog. He's already outside. All right, what would you grab? Come on, be honest. What's the first thing that popped into your mind? Your phone. Woo! I'm going to tell you right now. I know ain't none of us going to admit it, but all of us would look for that stupid phone, wouldn't we? Jake saying no. You wouldn't? I remember, all right, so the older crowd, did your parents ever have the escape route talk with you?
Yes, my mama told me what to do.
Look, I was so anal about it. I drew a picture. I drew a picture of the house, and I said, you go out the window, you go around, and you meet at the bell box.
He had like a plan A, B, C, D.
I had the plan.
If this works, then do this. If this doesn't work, fire's over here.
I remember one of them was like, well, what if I think it was kind of high for the window. Well, you should break your legs. Then break your legs. Get out the window. I was serious, right? And you know what wasn't in my little drawing? The phone. Thank God. But it does say a lot, and I'm not trying to guilt you, but when I say, hey, what would be the first thing you take, and that thing, those material things pop in your mind, that says a lot about where we are, right? And not to guilt you, but to just kind of think closer about what's around you and what really matters. It says, be alert and guard of your heart from greed. Always wishing that you have somebody's what you don't have. For life can never be measured by the amount of things you possess. I wish some more people would read that. Life is not, basically you are not the sum total of what you have. And I believe that's the opposite in our society. If somebody comes up to you tomorrow and they say, I'm a homeless person, I'm just going to be honest, I think I'm included. I think we all would treat them different than if it was Elon Musk. Am I right or wrong? I've seen it many times. If you're anywhere out and somebody introduces himself as somebody important that you could benefit from, we all change our attitude. Because we do look at life this way. We look at people based on what they have and their position in life and these kind of things. And I think we miss people's potential, maybe even our own. Maybe we look in the mirror and don't see the potential that's there. Let me really rile y'all up. Ladies, a guy comes to ask you out and he ain't got no car, no job. You going out with him?
I don't want no.
Everybody said no. What if he had all this potential? Circle back. Get your crap together. And then you can ask me out. I'm going to need to see tax returns before we go out.
I don't know because, Dee was kind of regarded when he was like that, and now she's got a yacht.
I mean, that's true. The man couldn't afford a walkout song. She paid his money, and now he got a yacht.
I mean, with Bad Bunny and Jelly Roll, he was living in a truck.
He was in prison, wasn't he?
Bought her a G-Wagon the other day just as a gift.
So y'all need y'all a jelly roll. A big man with tattoos on his face. Yes, he is. Uh-oh, we done calling off. Okay, but hold on. This goes back to the verse I read, I believe, 2 weeks ago, right? If you weren't here, right? A woman can't lift a man up. Now, I'm just saying, you know, if you tearing him down, don't get mad when he tore down. You lift him up, he might be jelly roll. But anyway, all right, let's move on. That's not the sermon. For life can never be measured by the amount of things you possess. Jesus gave them this illustration. A wealthy landowner that had a farm produced bumper crops. Every year the harvest was so great, it filled the barns to overflowing. He thought, what should I do now? What should we do now, church? Okay. Well, let's see. Every year the harvest was so great, it filled his barns to overflowing. He thought, what should I do now that the barns are so full and I have nowhere else to store them? I know what I'll do. I'll tear that barn down and build a massive barn to hold all my grains and goods. Then I can go sit back, surrounded with comfort and ease. I will enjoy my life with no worries at all, God said to him. What a fool you are to trust in your riches and not to me. This very night, the messengers of death will demand to take your life. Then who will get your wealth you have stored up for yourself? The same thing will happen to all those who fill up their lives with everything but God. Ooh, that one stung a little. So let's get the picture, right? We got a guy, he's worked hard. Capitalism says it's his. I got too much. I don't have anywhere to put it. So I'm going to build a bigger barn. So then I can relax. He can semi-retire. It's a bad thing. But he said, now my life is A-okay. He thinks it is. Why? Why does he think it is? But what if he had known that the day he was going to die? He had provided for himself as if he was going to live another 50 years, and today was his last day on earth, and that's all he cared about was the crap he could find and buy with his money so he could sit back with his feet up. With a starving world around him when he was literally having food. Do you know in their times they had to leave a certain amount of their crops just for people who are in need, for the stranger, for the person who was traveling? That was commanded by God. Because he knew they were all, Jesus even says these words. He says, you will always have the poor. They will always be with you. There will always be somebody in your life that has a need.